It's UofL Today on 93.9 The Ville. Here's your host, Mark Hebert.
And welcome to UofL Today with Mark Hebert on 93.9 The Ville. We're glad you're joining us today. As we often say on this program, you will be a little bit smarter after the 30-minute show than you were right now at the start of the program. And we're going to tell you about some things going on at the University of Louisville. Coming up on the show just a little bit later on, UofL's nursing program is highly ranked, and the students who go through nursing school have opportunities to do service and provide care to people overseas, like in Belize, and places here at home like local clinics and on the backside of Churchill Downs. So we'll hear about some of that work from the School of Nursing. We'll also talk to a professor about a maple syrup project. Yes, a maple syrup project on the campus at the University of Louisville and other sustainability programs at UofL. But first, people who have almost total hearing loss may have a hero. Maybe too strong a word, Angelique. A hero in my first guest. She's Angelique Johnson. She's a professor in the entrepreneurship program at UofL, but she's also got her own company developing a cochlear implant that is low cost and could be used to help people hear again. So welcome, Angelique. How you doing?
Welcome. Doing really good.
Good to see you again. All right. Let's talk first about your company and what you have developed for people who have hearing loss.
Awesome.
Tell us about it.
Cool. So my company is MemStim LLC. In general, we develop implantable electronics for replacing lost nerve function. And specifically, our first product line is going to be in cochlear implants. We're developing an electrode array for those devices that is implanted inside the ear, and it stimulates the nerves inside the ear, the auditory nerve, to deliver hearing back to individuals. Now, these devices have been around for about 30 years, so we're not inventing the wheel, right? But what we're doing is we're changing the manufacturing process. Right now, those arrays are made by hand. The wires are very, very tiny, 25 microns. So that's like take a strand of your hair, cut the diameter in 4, right? There you go. Really small. Very small.
Okay.
People are welding to these wires. So what we're trying to do is get away from that hand assembly, do fully automated manufacturing, which is not only going to cut the cost by a factor of 20x or more, depending on how many we end up making, but also is going to allow for performance enhancing features. So there's a lot of materials that you just can't manipulate by hand and that are very sensitive to debris and things like that might be introduced by hand assembly that you can do. So we're looking at both ends of manufacturing for cost and also for performance enhancements.
Now, these cochlear implants that you're producing, are they for people who have total hearing loss or just partial hearing loss, or guys like me who are just getting old and losing their hearing?
Okay. Well, so they're for a particular type of hearing loss called sensory neural hearing loss. And the layman's definition is if you get no appreciable benefit from traditional external hearing implants or aids.
Like
right?
hearing aids, like that you just go buy in a store?
Exactly. What you would think about, most people think about hearing aids, they think about something, you kind of place inside your ear a little bit,
right.
It's not implanted inside the skull or anything.
Right.
But if you achieve no benefit from those, then you're likely to be a candidate for a cochlear implant. And really what happens with sensory neural hearing loss is that it doesn't matter how much you amplify the sound, the cells that used to be there to translate those mechanical waves into electrical signals no longer function. And so what cochlear implants do is we create wires that go inside the ear, really small wires and electrodes that go inside the cochlea and bypass those dead or inactive cells and stimulate the auditory nerve directly.
So it jump starts them.
Basically,
yeah. So
replacing the lost cells, yeah. So kind of giving an artificial sound, and people can get back word recognition. When you have a cochlear implant, they like to put them in individuals at a very young age. The thought is the earlier you get a cochlear implant, the more time your brain has to adapt and form around the technology. And the brain is just this miraculous thing. We truly don't understand it yet at this stage, but taking these electrical signals and it can translate that into all kinds of hearing and sound and speech recognition and wonderful ways. And so it just kind of picks right up on the lost information.
Are these for kids?
So they can be implanted in individuals as young as 12 months. However, people get them implanted at very old ages as well. It just depends on, whether you were born with a hearing loss or whether you developed it later in life and how severe the condition is. The best performance is seen when you implant them young. However, individuals that are full-grown adults get them. I've talked to a lot of cochlear implant recipients that got them, post-40s, and they just, talk about how to adjust to life, with this. It's great because now you can kind of hear again, but then it's also not the resolution and what you're used to from a younger time in life.
When might these be available?
So right now, cochlear implants are already available, right? Been around for 30 years. But my technology in particular, we're looking at entering into clinical trials over the next 2 to 3 years. We still have to prove out the safety and efficacy of the devices using other models before we're at the stage where we can put them into human beings in clinical trials. But so we're looking 2 to 3 years for clinical trials, and hopefully in the next 5 years actually have our devices implanted into humans and up on the market.
And hopefully have them smaller and cheaper than what's on the market right now, right?
Yeah, smaller and cheaper. We're going to be interfacing as a component supplier to established cochlear implant manufacturers, and but there's also a lot of startups such as myself that are trying to make very affordable cochlear implants, in particular for developing countries. These devices usually cost around $30,000. If you're in the U.S., maybe you get some discount if you're in a developing country, maybe $20,000, but that's a lot of money. And so there's a couple of companies, in particular in China and India, that are trying to reduce the cost of the, not just the array, but the circuitry. And combining our reduced cost array with their reduced cost circuitry, then you get a complete device that could, potentially be a lot more accessible to individuals that, can't afford, $20,000, $30,000 device.
That have bad hearing loss. All right, we're talking with Angelique Johnson, who's a professor at the University of Louisville and also an entrepreneur and a researcher. You came to the University of Louisville recently. Why? How'd you get here?
Yeah, cool. So when I came to University of Louisville, I was research faculty, basically term faculty in the College of Engineering, working in the Micro Nanotechnology Center, kind of just like spur up development in that. I had started the company in Michigan, and like most companies come out of university, it's, you either take investment from private firms early on, or you go the grant route. We decided to go the grant route, and so that's a longer timeline. So, I also wanted to investigate, do I want to do the tenure track route or not, just being realistic with you. And so during that first year, we were able to raise a significant amount of money to carry forward the company full-time, for me being a full-time employee.
Right.
And so now my affiliation to university is I heavily use the micro nanotechnology facilities, wouldn't be able to operate without them. And then I'm adjunct faculty in the College of Business, basically co-teaching, or I don't know how you said, 3 people, basically, Suzanne Bergmeister and Van Klaus and myself, some of the entrepreneurship courses there. And I'm kind of more like an entrepreneur in residence, to give the students coaching and things.
What got you to the University of Louisville? Was it the ability to work in the clean room, which is, where very small parts are made and you could work in there and do some research in there, or was it something else?
So we moved the company to Kentucky to take advantage of the matching funds for the state of Kentucky. So even when I first moved to Louisville, the company was still based in Michigan. I wasn't sure that I would stay in Louisville, and that really became a deciding factor. It's okay. Well, Michigan clearly has the same resources to a certain extent, but when the state of Kentucky is going to match grant funds that you get, not only for phase 1 for SBIRs, but also for phase 2 to a very high amount, that's kind of a no-brainer. And then you have the wonderful facilities, and it's it's kind of like, okay, why not move here?
I got you. All right. Well, we're glad to have you here. And you are an entrepreneur, and you're a female entrepreneur, which is rare in itself, but you're also an African-American female entrepreneur. You are the minority of the minorities here. So, so what do you, now you're teaching entrepreneurship classes at the University of Louisville. What message do you have to other African-American women or men or anybody about entrepreneur and getting your own business started and how to do that?
Yeah. So I think there's actually more of us out there than people realize. But being, coming from kind of the tech space, it kind of starts with, well, how many African-American females or males are getting engineering degrees or science degrees in the STEM area, and then, computer science, computer engineering degrees, and then taking that and spinning out to a company. So there's more of us than people perceive, but it is hard to do that kind of an environment. I always say people tend to bet on the horses that, are familiar to them, right? And so when you're an African-American female and there's not that many of you out there, it's like, okay, well, this is, this is either a unicorn or this is like a mule. And that's what people are thinking, really. And so what my advice is almost not even so much to the African-American community, because I think there's so many of us so brilliant doing so many wonderful things, but it's just the general entrepreneurship community. I think that people are going to, more and more become familiar with the talents and the abilities, in a diverse community, and just open up more to the option of, hey, It may not be something that you're familiar with, looking at in this community, but that's no reason that, we can't take off. And there's a lot of people actually in Silicon Valley, looking at the issue now, and some pretty wealthy individuals that come from a diverse background. They're really trying to change the framework of how funding and things go. So, yeah.
Angelique Johnson, good luck with the classes. Good luck with the product in your company. I'm sure you'll be successful.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm glad you're here at the University of Louisville, by the way.
Thank you.
Whitney Nash is the Associate Dean of Practice and Service in UofL School of Nursing. We'll have to ask her what practice and service means. She's here to talk about the amazing service learning opportunities and the people being helped by UofL's nursing students, both here and abroad. And you brought with you Kimmy Rakes.
Yes.
Kimmy Rakes, who is a UofL grad, right, Kimmy?
Yes, that's right.
All right. Get right up on that microphone there. Don't be shy. I won't bite you. You might bite it. But well, Whitney, thank you for coming on the show. Kimmy, thanks for coming. Let's talk a little bit about what does it mean, practice and service. What is that in the School of Nursing?
Certainly. I sort of coordinate any practice activities relative to certainly advanced practice nursing. So nurse practitioners who work in the community who are also faculty members with the School of Nursing. So there's a range of things we do. We work with student health. One of our biggest areas is the Kentucky Racing Health Services Center. And we have 5 nurse practitioners who, through their faculty agreements, provide services there free of charge.
Well, explain what that is for people who don't know what that is.
So it's any health-related services that would be sort of if you went to see your own primary care provider. It would be anything from sore throats to hypertension to high cholesterol, those types of things.
And you talked about the racing thing, though. That's at Churchill Downs, right?
That's at Churchill Downs. It's any active worker in the horse racing industry in the state of Kentucky. So they could come from Keeneland. They could come from any area that has a horse racing track. This is not the jockeys and the trainers. These are actually the folks that work on the backside, that muck the stalls, exercise the horses, and such.
And what services do the UofL nursing students provide? What do they do?
Our nursing students rotate through the clinic, and
there's a clinic actually on the backside of Churchill Downs?
It's actually located on Haywood Avenue, which is across the street, and it's an old schoolhouse there. Mm-hmm. We've been there this is our 11th year. And students rotate through there. They could be nurse practitioner students. They could be our undergraduate nursing students. And they do observation, but they also provide direct care under the supervision of the faculty there.
All right. Kimmy, did you do that when you were...
I did actually shadow Dr. Nash there at the horse track clinic. I did, yeah.
Okay. And when did you graduate from UofL?
It was...
It seems
like so long ago, but I think it was August 2013 is when I graduated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like forever ago,
It does
right?
seem like forever ago.
And so what are you doing now?
So I actually work at Jewish Hospital in their intensive care unit. It's kind of a medical cardiac ICU. And so I've been working there for about almost 3 years now.
Okay. And so what did you learn at the University of Louisville, perhaps through programming and the service?
So I actually went with Dr. Nash to Belize for the International Service Learning Project. So we went in March of 2013. It was over spring break. And so this is what we wanted to dive into.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, sure.
So we went to Belize. It was a multidisciplinary project. So actually we went with dental school, we went with just administration, and then nursing. So what we did is that we found a need in the community in Belize, and our need for nursing was vision. And so we screened vision in adults and in children in the schools, and we provided corrective lenses, and we also did colorblind testing with the children in the schools. So that's what we did as a nursing standpoint. And then dental provided a dental clinic where they did tooth extractions, and then just administration. I think their project was bullying. Mm-hmm. So they addressed bullying in those schools.
So there were several groups from UofL that went together down to Belize and did a kind of a holistic...
It really is an interesting format because it's interprofessional. So even though each of the individual professions develop their own program, they work in work groups that are interprofessional teams. So in the schools when we're teaching things like vision, doing vision screening, good eye health, that would be a team of nursing students, communication students, justice administration that would all be working together to provide that. And then the other students would then rotate through the dental clinic. So we would have nursing students, communication, JA students get to see what a fully functional dental clinic might look like in an underserved area.
We're talking with Whitney Nash and Kimmy Rakes. Kimmy's a graduate of the U of L School of Nursing, and Whitney still works there. And why do you think it's important that these students have that experience, some sort of, I'm going to call it an international learning experience, but you can call it what you want?
Well, you know, the School of Nursing really prides itself on international, regional, and local service. And we really try to focus on the interprofessional aspect of that. And the feedback that I get from the students, and I do require most of our students in it's a little variable between programs, but to do a reflective writing piece. So it gives me some feedback on really what it means to them to be able to do this. And I've never had a student say, gosh, I wish I didn't participate in this program. It's always, this is life-changing for me. It has helped me define my career goals, maybe even redefine. I had students that maybe were in communication and they got to see what a nursing student did and didn't really have an understanding and changed their career path. So I really feel like it's our responsibility to try to make it available to every student as much as we possibly can.
And did it help you, Kimmy, when you saw people that walked in, I assume that were poor, maybe hadn't had access to health care in Belize, or on the backside of Churchill Downs, a lot of folks are that way. Did it help you figure out, A, I want to I want to be a nurse, and B, this is something that could really make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like Dr. Nash said, it is life-changing. It's really eye-opening because you do serve these underdeveloped areas in Belize, but you have it here at home also. So it definitely made me know for sure, like, I wanted to be a nurse and help those that don't have access to health care like we do here so easily.
Well, and it's really exciting, too, because Kimmy's just recently been accepted into our brand new Doctorate of Nursing Practice program that launches this fall. So we're really happy to have another quality student join our program.
Since you took us down that road, what is that program? Go ahead and give it
sure.
a pitch.
I'll give it a pitch. It's actually the sort of direction that schools of nursing are going in, where nurse practitioners who traditionally have been educated in the master's programs are now moving towards a doctorate. So it's a clinical doctorate program, similar to what pharmacists with the PharmD and then physical therapy is done with making it an actual clinical doctorate. So it's different than the PhD, which is research focused. This is very clinical focused. So when Kimmy gets done with our program, she will be eligible to set for her nurse practitioner certification, but will also have a clinical doctorate at the end of the program.
So does that put them in a position to get a better job, more pay, or what does it do?
All of those things,
Okay.
but and there's always the question, so what would be different if I was master's prepared versus doctorally prepared, because there will still be some of those programs available as a nurse practitioner. And what we like to talk about is the fact that our students, we feel, will be more prepared to really take research and translate it into practice. So really beyond just the clinical skill set that we provide them now, but really being able to be leaders in clinical practice.
There's also a talk that there's been talk for many years now about the shortage of doctors out in rural areas, and there are more nurse practitioners and those kinds of things doing things that doctors used to do. Is that one of the things that we're teaching at the University of Louisville, that basically the nurses are pushing up to the line of becoming doctors, for lack of a better term?
Well, it's certainly very controversial.
I know.
And in this state, it certainly is. But I like to, make sure that we bring to point that we're not here to replace physicians. There's lots of patients to be seen, especially with the Affordable Care Act. More folks have access, and so we need qualified providers to provide primary care. There's a lot of different viewpoints on this subject, but certainly I see in the future that a lot of primary care is going to be provided by nurse practitioners, and that physicians are moving into more specialty roles. I don't know if that will be fully developed in my lifetime, but I think I see that as a move.
Right. Kimmy, what do you hope to do going in this doctorate of nursing program?
So I got selected into the specialty of acute care. So I'll be staying in the intensive care units. So I'm hoping to work along with physicians. Actually, at Jewish Hospital, they do have acute care nurse practitioners that work alongside the physicians. So I'm hoping after the completion of this program, I'll be hired onto their group.
And what would you say about the University of Louisville School of Nursing to folks out there who may be listening, a mom and dad or someone who's younger than you that might consider this?
It's a fantastic organized program. I do feel it really did prepare me well for real life nursing practice, which I'm a lot of my coworkers that went to different programs can't say the same, but UofL does really prepare you for real life nursing practice.
You were ready. Once you walked into Jewish Hospital, you knew what the heck you were
Well,
doing.
I needed a little assistance, but
Okay.
as far as the knowledge and the skill, I definitely learned it from
Well, I feel
UofL.
comfortable that you know what the heck you're doing if I go to Jewish Hospital tomorrow, okay? All right. Whitney Nash, appreciate it. And Kimmy, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Good luck with your further studies and
Thank
your job
you.
at Jewish Hospital. All right.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Sitting in front of me right now is Melissa Michaels. She is a biology professor at the University of Louisville, and she's also involved in some of the sustainability efforts on campus and trying to inspire more women to get into the science fields. Well, that sounds like a good thing to do. Melissa, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sure. All right. Well, let's start with a sappy thing to talk about, a sappy story. Ba-dum-bum. I'm here all week. Tip your bartenders and waitresses.
Yes.
You had a project on campus with your class to produce some syrup. So tell us about that.
Yes, so I was approached by biology professor Dr. Linda Fuselier on campus. I'm from the education department, and I guess word got around that I was a decent teacher. And so they asked me to teach this special section of Biology Lab 104 for non-science majors on campus. Now, a lot of my research...
There used to be the kids like me that were communications majors
right,
that
yes.
don't know much about science.
Yeah,
I got
and
you.
the funny thing too about this is a lot of my students were fifth or sixth year seniors because, as this is a required course to graduate, they just put it off to the last semester.
Doesn't
Yeah,
surprise me.
but I'm glad they did. I really enjoyed working with these students. They're hardworking, and I was very thankful to be their teacher. So I was approached with this idea of tapping the maple trees on campus. And that took a lot of groundwork. My students and I, we did a lot of research on maple trees. We figured out where the maple trees were on campus, how to tap the maples, which trees to tap, like the DBH, the size of the tree, diameter at breast height, how big the trees had to be to tap them. So there was a lot of work that went into tapping the trees before we actually did it. And we also collaborated with a lot of people on campus. Justin Mogg from the sustainability program here at UofL, as well as Greg Shetler and Paul
Yeah, I don't know.
and the maintenance
I know Greg.
guys. So they were very helpful in facilitating this opportunity.
So why'd you decide to, or why did anybody decide, well, let's go tap the maple trees?
Well, there was a gentleman, Dave Barker, who my understanding is he approached UofL and asked if he could tap the maple trees. He owns a farm, Urban Ducks Farm, out in the East End, and he was curious about, hey, what about tapping the maple trees in an urban area? And since sustainability, a focus here at UofL is sustainability and using the campus as a living laboratory, it seemed like a great fit for us to actually tap the maple trees here on campus.
All right, so you went and found all of the maple trees. How many maple trees are there on campus?
Oh
by the
gosh.
way?
Well,
Do you know?
we tapped only 12. There's
Okay.
more than 12, but we only tapped 12.
All right, so you tapped 12 trees, and I assume you put the little metal thing in, you tap it in with
Yeah.
a hammer, and or you had the students do it, I guess.
Yeah.
right?
So
right.
we went out one day, and we have great pictures of that, of the students drilling the trees, and we researched how far to drill them, about 5/8 inches in, because of the anatomy of the trees. You want to drill into the sapwood or the xylem, not into the heartwood, because the sapwood is where the sap actually flows. So we don't want to, go past that. We want to go in there. And the students had a good time researching all of that information as well.
So the purpose of the project was what?
The purpose of the project was to tap the maple trees in hopes to get more people interested in science. So a little bit, especially women and minorities. So my background as a teacher, I didn't know I loved science until I was in my master's program, where I fell in love with environmental education, and I didn't even realize I had been doing science since I was a kid. By hiking and observing and classifying plants and dissecting insects. I didn't even know that was science, because typically in the classroom it's, memorize these vocabulary words and fill out these worksheets. And so I knew, some of the research says that if you don't catch students by middle school, then they're not going to do science as adults. But I knew that wasn't true because I didn't know I loved science until my master's. So I saw a great opportunity to use this maple tapping project to help encourage women and minorities to get in science, even though their major was not in a science field. my hope was that they could get out in the environment and see the benefits of doing projects and research with the environment.
So closing the loop on the maple syrup tree tapping. What happened with you tap the trees?
Yes.
Did you go out with little buckets and get the sap rolling off and produce some syrup? What happened?
So the reason I'm laughing is because while we were tapping the trees, 2 of our drills stopped working. And we also got stopped by the campus police, which was funny.
You were defacing the trees?
Yeah. Well, and at first I was kind of like, oh, what? Like, why are they,
Well, that makes sense if you're putting holes in trees.
Right.
I'm thinking if I'm a police officer, hey, what are they doing?
And then I was really thankful that this campus cares about trees. This campus really does care about the trees, and the students here and the faculty here really do care about UofL. And so although we were stopped by the police, I was thankful because that showed me that students do care about the environment here at UofL. So back to tapping the trees. So we ended up, the students put a lot of work in out of class time to collect the sap. So the sap season is January to March. In order to produce, for the trees to produce sap, we need the cold, the freezing, below freezing nights, and then the above freezing temperatures with the warm sun during the day, so that helps create sap flow. So the students had about a 2 to 3 week data collection window where they were put into groups to go monitor the sap collection from the trees. And we had metal buckets set up, and you could see the sap coming and flowing into the buckets. And I even tasted it a little bit, and it was a little bit sweet. And we did the refractometer, which is the sugar testing, Brix test to test the sugar content in the syrup. We noticed that we tapped sugar maples and red maples, and we noticed that the sugar maples had slightly more sugar content in them. So over this 2 to 3 week period of data collection, the students were out there doing field work on the ground floor, taking the sap and dumping it into larger
a big vat
barrels, on campus. And there's some funny things with that. One of our buckets got ran over, and just silliness with field work. But all in all, we ended up with about 2 quarts of syrup. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but research shows that about 40 gallons of sap makes 1 gallon of syrup.
That's a lot of work for 1 gallon of syrup.
It is a lot of work. Yes, I'm so proud of my students. They put in a lot of work for this. And while 2 quarts does not seem like a lot, it really is. And especially this is the first time we've done it. And we'll actually get to taste our syrup, the fruits of our labor, tomorrow.
Okay,
and we'll have a little
pancake supper or something?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to do it again next year? You're going to do the same
I don't know,
project?
maybe. We'll see.
Well, did the students enjoy it, and what did they learn?
They learned, they learned a lot. They learned how to tap maple trees. They learned that they could tap maple trees. I even had a student come up to me who didn't even know that she was eating plants, in her breakfast cereal. She came up to me and said, I realized through this project, I have a maple tree in my backyard, and I believe that it's a sugar maple. So the students, learned how to identify different maple trees. And she said, I think I might try to tap it myself next year.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you inspired somebody.
Right, exactly, for sure.
All right, we got to wrap up here in just a minute. You talked a little bit earlier about trying to inspire more women into going into the STEM fields, science, technology, math, and engineering. What do you think is the reason that there aren't more women in those fields?
That is a hot question, and that is what my research is in. Some of the things that I'm looking at are the power structures within STEM education, the identity of women and minorities within the field of science.
Forward to your research, and hopefully you'll do the syrup thing next year.
Yes.
Tap the trees on UofL's campus, and you won't get arrested. That'll be great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for listening to UofL Today with Mark Hebert, and go Cards.